Hey, campfire crew, let's get it on.
New Year's and New Gym Scare, or Leave Your Johnson at Home, submitted by Travis. Pardon the title, if you use it, cool. I have to laugh at this situation, although it was anything but funny at the time. When I was in my mid-20s, my longtime girlfriend decided to cheat on me, so that ended that. I didn't even entertain her excuses. That shit was just low, and one thing I wouldn't put up with from anyone. I'm not Brad Pitt, but I'm not a fugly guy either. One night, she decided to give a server at a restaurant she was at with her friends a toss in the sack. And even her friends were pissed at her, and some tried to get me to reconsider. Even though we'd been together for 4 years and were talking about marriage and stuff, I saw that as nothing but bad shit to come down the line if we stayed together. This was right before the holidays that year, the beginning of November. After some drinks with my boys, I decided I needed to get back to the gym and start fresh with everything. I had been a D2 athlete, soccer if you want to know, when I was in college, and I wanted my six-pack back. I was not out of shape by any means, but I'd been neglecting my old regimen. It was time to crank out workouts again, and the petty side of me also wanted to stick it in my ex's face. I checked out a bunch of gyms in my area, some that I was familiar with, but there were 2 newer ones I wasn't. I picked one that I liked that had a steam room and a sauna, and it wasn't too far from my apartment. It didn't take long to get back into the swing of early morning workouts before my job, and it didn't take long for me to meet Kim, either. Kim's not her real name. Kim was, well, call me a pig. Quite the specimen. 5'8", long blonde hair, built like a brick shithouse. I mean, well endowed, but in amazing physical shape, too. You couldn't not notice her when she was in the gym. What I did notice is that she was always there when I was, and usually doing similar stuff that I was. If it was cardio, she was around. Free weights, there was Kim. One day she asked me to spot her benching, and I said sure. We started talking and became friends. Gym friends, but friends nonetheless. After a week or so of talking during and after workouts, she asked if we could start training together, as she didn't have anyone else that went to the gym. She was super nice, and yeah, her cut-off shirts and tight spandex didn't hurt anything. I was thinking with my other brain, and I said sure. I was convinced she had a boyfriend or something, but just wanted to work out with me. We began to meet for workouts, and I learned she was 20 years old, 6 years younger than me. I didn't care. She had a great personality, and we had a lot in common, including recent breakups. After one workout, I asked her if she wanted to grab a salad or something sometime, and she smiled her amazing Susie toothpaste smile and said she wanted to just be friends. But if I was cool with that, then a meal together would be great. Our friendship went on, and I was getting my six-pack back slowly, and she was a huge reason for it. Kim kept me very motivated, but I could tell I was getting smitten by her, and she was with me. But we had kept it cool until she asked me to dinner on New Year's Eve that year. I said sure, and then she said, "At my place." She then leaned in to kiss me, and I kissed her back. She gave me her address and said 7 o'clock. It was Thursday, and we usually took Fridays off. New Year's was on Saturday night, and I thought if we couldn't make our Saturday workout, I thought if I played my cards right, I'd be getting a workout of another kind. So Saturday came. I went to her place, and it was a really nice apartment complex, and it dawned on me that I didn't know what she did for a living. At that moment, I didn't really care. She was hot, I was hot for her, and that was it. She invited me in, and she looked amazing. I mean, she was hot as balls at the gym, but she looked devastating that night. We had a glass of wine, and she made this great pasta dish. And we had more wine, and then I had a couple of helpings of Kim. It was in that post-sex stupor of all is right with the world feeling when I got up to get a glass of water. I woke up a little faster, though, when my head was socked from the side into the wall right outside of her bedroom. My head exploded in pain, and I immediately felt another massive punch in my gut, and I doubled over. I went down on one knee, and from a distance heard Kim yell out, "What the hell are you doing here?" It sounded like she was at the bottom of a canyon. My eyes adjusted, and I saw a guy standing in front of me who said, "Who the fuck do you think you are touching my sister?" I slowly got out of my haze and saw this hand coming at me, and I dodged it. The punch missed me, but the guy's hand cracked off the frame of Kim's bedroom, and he gave off a yowl. I shifted to the side, dropped down, and brought my elbow into the back of his knee with all my weight on it, and he collapsed. This guy was a big dude, but not as in shape as me, but he was a mammoth of a guy. I kicked him in the face with all I had in my bare feet, and his head snapped back, and then it registered. His sister? What the fuck? Then I heard the sound of something metallic, and a voice say, "Don't you move, motherfucker." I looked up and saw a guy standing in the light of the hallway, pointing a gun at me. I froze. Kim was screaming stuff at her brother about how much of an asshole he was, and I was more than confused. Her brother just sat there holding his nose in his face. I did give him a good one. As I looked at him, I felt the barrel of the gun on the side of my head. "Get up slow, get your shit, and get back out here," said the voice. I looked at Kim, who was now standing in her doorway naked, and I thought how massively hot she looked right then. Like a total fucking idiot that I am. She was crying and saying over and over, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." I just did what the voice told me to do and grabbed my stuff. The brother had gotten up, and the other guy was telling him to shut up and get out of the way. I mean, I had no idea what was going on. I took one last look at Kim and smiled at her. Tears were streaming down her face. I slowly walked down the hall with the guy pointing the gun at me, and he just said, "You were never here. You don't know any Kim. Go away and don't come back." It was like I was still swimming underwater. I looked one more time back to see Kim, but she had gone in her bedroom with her brother, and the guy said, "Leave now." I didn't argue and ran for my car like a scared kid. I drove home, ran into my apartment, and grabbed a beer. My head was throbbing, and I finally went into the bathroom to look at it. There was a huge goose egg near my temple. I got an ice pack, sat down, and tried to put everything together. I tried calling Kim, but it just rang and rang. Then I thought better of it when her machine picked up, and I didn't leave a message. I figured I'd let things cool down and see what was up with her if I saw her at the gym. She never came back to the gym. I never saw her again, and a week into the new year, her phone had been disconnected. Taking a chance, I drove by her apartment a couple of times at different parts of the day, but her car was never parked there. Kim just vanished, poof. To this day, I have no idea what happened to her, who she really was, or what I may have stumbled into. I wish there was some cool ending to this story like, well, it turns out she was in a mob family, or I finally found out that Kim was in the witness protection program, or Kim reached out to me on Facebook last month. But that's not the truth. The truth is, she left my life as quickly as she came into it. It's been many, many years since this all happened, and I'm happy to say that I'm not the scummy, objectifying asshat I was when I was younger. I met a nice girl, got married, and we have 5 kids, 2 of which are around the same age as when this happened to me. I don't often think of Kim, but your call for holiday stories brought all of it back. Wherever Kim may be, I hope her New Year's is better this year than the one we shared so long ago. My creepy gym guy story. This story is from the perspective of a female. Before my days of my fitness YouTube channel, I outgrew my home gym and joined a larger gym for their equipment. I'd been a member for 2 weeks at the new gym, and it was an upper body day, so I had a variety of exercises lined up. Using a straight bar on a cable machine, I began with a set of bicep curls. I'm normally very focused on workouts and purposefully try not to make eye contact with other gym goers. However, this night I noticed a very tall man doing pull-ups right next to me. This wasn't unusual at all. The new gym was much larger than my old gym, but it was far more crowded. And plus, it was the after-work rush. At times, it felt like we were working out right on top of each other, and my attention to this man was brief, but he was noticeably tall. I imagined he could have simply reached up to grab the pull-up bar. His eyes were sunken in slightly and had dark circles underneath, and he was also very thin. I thought he could have totally played basketball in college or something. Laser focused on my workout and music, I completed 2 more sets of cable machine bicep curls, then made my way through the crowd to the dumbbell rack for shoulder shrugs. To my left, I noticed the tall man again. He was so tall. I thought he's got to be at least 6'6". I refocused on my workout and continued performing shoulder shrugs in the mirror. I glanced over at tall guy's reflection. He was struggling to perform bicep curls next to me while staring at my reflection. It was an awkward sight, and when our eyes met in the mirror, he quickly looked away. It's important to mention that not only did my new gym come with great equipment, but also many men who disregarded gym etiquette, so it was not uncommon for my workouts to be interrupted by men with pickup lines. All of this made me somewhat desensitized to male gym goers' overt behavior. I chalked this tall guy's staring to the usual shenanigans and finished my shoulder shrugs. My gym's layout was spacious and shaped like the letter C. The gym was 2 levels, with machines and strength training on the bottom level and cardio on the top. My favorite cardio machine was the stair mill, and that was one reason I joined the gym. It had tons of stair mills. When you entered the gym, you could walk directly up a flight of stairs to the cardio level and then make a sharp left turn toward the stair mill aisle. There, about 5 stair mill machines lined the back wall. The setup was great for privacy. My favorite stair mill was at the end of the aisle, nestled in the corner. If I could, I always tried to snag it, and I got lucky on this night, and not only had I gotten my corner stair mill, but also the other after-gym workout crowd started to clear out. I was alone in the stair mill aisle. My headphones were on and my music was blaring, and I drifted off into my mind. I opened my eyes to adjust the speed, and in the corner of my left eye was Tall Guy again. He was seemingly texting on his phone and just casually leaning up against the wall. I thought nothing of it. After I adjusted the speed, I closed my eyes and my mind drifted again. Upon reopening my eyes, I noticed that Tall Guy was closer to me and still texting on his phone. We made eye contact and he seemed nervous. I knew then that something was up, and I turned off my headphones but continued to wear them. I began wondering if he was videotaping me. Then I mentally backpedaled and second-guessed myself. I thought, you don't know for sure that he's videotaping you, so he could just be minding his own business and you're just jumping to conclusions. I continued climbing stairs but remained aware of Tall Guy's position. By this point, he was no longer pretending to text as he used his left hand to steady himself while sliding down the aisle with his back against the wall. He was videotaping me. Now recall that I was on the corner stair mill. In order for me to leave the area, I would have to climb down the stair mill and slide by Tall Guy. The idea of that encounter scared me, so I considered other options, and there weren't very many. So I made more eye contact in a way that demonstrated that I knew what he was doing. He was unfazed and continued traversing down the wall in my direction. I was alone in the corner. I took my headphones off and put them around my neck, then pointed my iPhone camera in his direction. This only seemed to speed up his descent, and soon Tall Guy was standing directly behind me in the corner. If I jumped down, we'd be on top of each other. That was my best option, but I panicked. I took pictures of him videoing me as he sat down, legs crossed at the base of my stair mill. He was filming my butt. It was like he was in full filmmaker mode. Tall Guy seemed much more manageable sitting on the floor than standing in all of his 6'6" glory, so I hopped off the stair mill, over him, and ran down to the front desk. My heart was pounding and I yelled loudly to get a front desk attendant's attention. One gym employee came over to see how he could assist, and I began breathlessly telling him what had just occurred and frantically pointed towards the upstairs. The gym employee told me to calm down, and I more calmly repeated what had just happened to me. And he asked incredulously, "How do you know he was filming you? People film here all the time." I showed him pictures of tall guys seated legs crossed at the base of my stair mill, and the gym employee responded, "He could be doing anything. You don't know if he was filming you." Any sense of urgency went away, and I found myself defending my own eyes to two male gym employees. Their assertions were ridiculous. One of the gym employees asked me if tall guy was indeed filming me, why hadn't I confronted him? Surely that meant I was lying. I replied, "Yeah, because I'm going to take on a 6'6" guy by myself who's brazen enough to blatantly film me." That statement must have stunned him back into reality, because gym employee quickly asked me to point out the tall guy. By that point, tall guy was gone. The gym employees told me they would look into the situation, and I left feeling defeated. I drove over to the Walmart in the next parking lot and angrily called my now ex-boyfriend. He was also angry upon hearing my story. He was fired up, and I was fired up too. I went back to the gym and demanded to speak to a manager. The incident occurred not 10 minutes prior, and the assistant gym manager knew nothing about it. I had to retell my story for the third time that night, but made sure to lament about his male gym employee's attitude towards me too. I was again told the situation would be handled and a report would be filed. I felt like no one was taking me seriously. I went home, told my girlfriends what had happened, and showed them the images. They were frightened and disgusted. My head was spinning. I emailed the chain's corporate office with my story and pictures. Then my girlfriends, my boyfriend, and I tweeted their official Twitter account. I returned to the gym in the morning to discuss the matter again, and the assistant gym manager said, "I told you I would handle it." He went on to tell me that after we spoke the night before, tall guy returned. He was up on the cardio floor again filming another woman's butt, and her husband caught him. Her husband went to tell the front desk attendant, and they immediately called the police. The police questioned tall guy, and I'm told he was as strange as he appeared to be. The police asked him if they could see his phone, and he declined. And apparently, without a warrant, they couldn't demand it. The only recourse was to file a police report and ban tall guy from the gym. As annoyed as I was with how the gym handled my complaint, I felt relief at knowing he was at least banned, and onlookers were forced to believe me. My relief was cut short when it dawned on me that tall guy would just go sign up at another gym to fulfill his sexual deviancy. Someone who had such little self-control could potentially have a record, which would be valuable information to know if any gym ever bothered doing background checks. My thoughts spiraled into a dark place. Every gym goer could be potentially vulnerable to the whims of tall guy, and many gyms now even have daycare rooms. Where would he go, and who would he encounter next? I never received any acknowledgement from that gym's corporate office. However, the gym manager did attempt to contact me a couple of times to apologize. By this time, I didn't want it or need it. One scary run. Normally, Monday is my off day, but on this Monday I had made up my mind to do a quick 4-mile tempo run. As is my usual schedule, I was up by 5:30 a.m., rolling right out of bed and into my running gear. I put my shoes on downstairs while the Garmin sat outside the front door loading satellites. It was still quite chilly and not quite spring running weather, and I had on running tights, my favorite cold weather top with reflective piping, hat, and gloves. I started jogging like I do every run, using the first mile as a warm-up. Since my husband and I moved into our new house almost a year ago, I have loved most everything about it and the neighborhood. My only beef with the neighborhood is that even if I dip in and out of every side street, I can only run about 6 to 7 miles before I have to start running laps or cross a busy main road to get to the trail running. It's an old neighborhood, safe, with lots of trees, an elementary school smack in the middle, and if you run to the end of the road you hit the Chesapeake Bay. And it has a lot of ideal 3 to 4 mile routes. I was about halfway through my mile warm-up and had gotten to the part where two neighborhoods essentially intersect. As I passed under a streetlight, I heard in a loud, clear male voice, "Damn, that's a fine-looking ass." What? My radar went up a little and I thought, I've been heckled before while running by children. One older woman who once laughed at me while smoking her cigarette and said, "Run, Forrest, run!" And one morning, a car of guys yelled out the window to me, "Go home!" So this man yelled at me, and I just kept running. I looped around the same road I was on to where the interior streets intersect with it, making my way back out to the main neighborhood road. It was not yet 6 a.m. As I approached an intersecting street, I noticed a car reach the stop sign. I was on red alert by this time. Watching for the car to turn left or right, I picked up my pace passing it, and as I was realizing it was not turning, I heard the same man's voice yell at me again, "Damn, I want to fuck that pussy." Sorry for the profanity, folks, but I'm telling it like it was. I heard the car behind me and I was sprinting for my life. I made it out to the main road and dipped into the next neighborhood street, hoping I had done so under the cover of darkness so the driver couldn't see me. I ran to the first house with a porch light on and that had 2 cars parked in the driveway. Hiding between them, I watched a silver sedan slowly creep down the main road. He hadn't seen me. My heart felt like it was beating out of my chest. Looking up, I saw a woman was coming out of the house next door, packing her car for work. I walked over, trying not to startle her, and calmly asked if she could give me a ride out of the neighborhood after explaining what had happened. The neighbor drove me back to my street, and I hopped out at a streetlight, sprinting the last quarter mile back to my doorstep. I walked in and stared at my husband. He opened his eyes, and then I burst into tears telling him the story. By that time, the creep would be long gone, and we hashed out my next run. I went from being terrified to angry. How dare that asshole mess with my running? It's what I love. Don't scare me. Don't do that. Then I started thinking about all the school bus stops in the neighborhood, other runners, other women who are up at that early hour. I emailed the neighborhood association to inform them of the incident, and at their direction had a police officer come out that day so I could file a report. The pact I made with my husband is that I would start running with the can of mace that I've had for years but never carried. I hate doing it, and I hate that some creep scared me enough to feel like I have to be ready to protect myself in my safe family neighborhood. The very next day, I ran the exact same route, mace in hand, cell phone in a pocket, and my husband 100 yards behind me on a bike just to make sure. The next day I did it again, this time sans husband, and again, and again. Now the sun is coming up a little earlier, and I recently made the discovery that my pit bull puppy has an 8:15 mile pace and makes a pretty darn good running partner, so she has joined me on early morning runs. If I could get her to look intimidating rather than adorable, that would help a little bit more, but just having her with me seems to add security. My warm weather gear does not have the pockets that my cold weather gear does, so I'm not sure how to run with my new requisite safety items, but under husband's orders, if I want to keep running at dark 30, I'll find a way. Lessons learned? Plenty. Even the most seemingly safest places can unfortunately have a dark side. Running alone in the dark as a female is not necessarily the smartest decision. Be aware of your surroundings. Having run the exact same streets 3 to 5 or more times a week for an entire year doesn't mean you know what's lurking on every corner. Be alert. I don't run with music. I really do prefer the quiet and hearing my own footfalls, but for those of you that do, make sure you can hear what else is going on around you. And like in boating, leave a float plan. Make sure someone knows you're going running where and for how long. And don't make light of any of this. My other lesson learned? I have more speed in me than I thought. At the peak of sprinting away from the creep, my pace hit a 5:44 mile. When a Gym Guy Turns Creepy by Tanya E. As a fitness lover who frequents the gym several times a week, I've become familiar with my fellow regulars. There's the extremely buff fitness competitor who is always quick to offer a warm smile, and the guy with the oversized muscles who might look menacing if you were to pass him in a dark street, but who in actuality is a gentle giant. There are the body shred devotees and yoga lovers, the adrenaline-hooked spinning diehards, and then there are the treadmill and weight machine addicts, such as myself. We all have a couple of things in common. We're all dedicated to personal health, and we've come to recognize one another. We smile, say hello, and sometimes have a quick chat. This is a good thing and a bad thing. See, sometimes this familiarity and friendliness goes wrong. Creepy, even. How things went from a polite exchange of hellos to him asking about my sex life was quite confusing. The man, an older regular whose name I don't even know, seemed harmless enough, nervously polite even. But somewhere between the occasional wave and him marveling at how cute my son is, my boy used to be a member of the gym daycare, his tone shifted. "You're very fit," he said to me one day while I was using a leg weight machine. "You work out hard," he continued. "I'm too old for you, but if I was younger, I'd ask for your phone number." Yes, the considerable age difference, that's it. Oh, and the small detail of my husband and son, I said to myself. I said thank you, I looked away, and then continued my reps. He was undeterred. "I can't believe you have a 1.5-year-old. Are you working out in other ways too? With your husband?" he said, giving my body the creepy eyeball rundown. "Make sure you're working out in other ways too, and have another baby," he said, indicating my groin. What? Seriously, what? At this point, my body language was completely closed off. My arms were crossed protectively across my chest, and I was giving him a look that clearly said, "Okay, you can get the hell away from me now." The man was either oblivious or didn't care. If you've wondered why so many gym-goers blast their iPods and stare stone-faced straight ahead, well, now you know. They're afraid to make eye contact with crazy people. The next time I saw him, I was once again stationed at a machine, which I am convinced was his way of trapping me in conversation. "It looks like you're working out hard," he began. That must have been his signature icebreaker. Yep, I am," I said curtly, reaching for my headphones. "And have you also been working out in those other ways too?" he asked. And then he does it again, the full body ogle. This time I gave him the stink eye, cast a look of disgust, and dismissively waved him off as though he were nothing more than an irritating housefly. He was still talking when I slipped my headphones back on, but he quickly left the gym, hopefully defeated. The Uninvited Rider by Steve K. One night, while riding the local trails near my house alone after sunset, I encountered an unwanted riding partner. I knew there had been a dead body found on the nature preserve months ago, but I never gave it much thought. My regular 1-hour loop was going as planned, heading up Blueberry Trail to the top of the mountain and then to Bones Trail, turning right onto Waterfall and descending down to the access road for the nice climb back to the truck. While riding Blueberry, I stopped and took a picture with my cell phone of the lights in the valley below and enjoyed the absolute stillness of the top of the mountain. About 15 minutes later, after crossing Bones and starting down Waterfall, I had an eerie sensation. Not being a believer in ghosts, UFO abductions, or the like, I try to be skeptical and often find myself snickering at others' claims of otherworldly encounters. That being said, as I descended the single track with only my helmet light to show the way, I distinctly felt as if there was someone looking over my shoulder the entire way down. I was more puzzled than freaked out. I remembered looking over my right shoulder for a second as I rode, completely expecting to see something, as if I was driving my truck and someone was in the back seat, leaning forward to whisper something into my ear. Once I made it down to the end of Waterfall, I started climbing the old fire road back to my truck, and the feeling instantly went away. I stopped and looked into the darkness for a minute or two, wondering what I had just experienced. The rest of the ride was uneventful, and I finished up, put the bike in the back of my truck, and went home. A few days later, while hanging out at a local bike shop, I shared my story with some friends with the expectation of getting a few laughs. But a riding friend of mine looked shocked and said that he'd had the exact same experience on the exact same trail just a day or two before me. After a quick internet search, we discovered that we both rode the trail almost 1 year to the day that the man went missing from his home and died on what is now the top of Waterfall Trail. The local gym was a bad idea. Submitted by I Hate Rickrolls. This goes back to the late 90s when I was fresh out of college. I had moved back home with my parents to save more money, and other than my job, I spent a lot of time at the gym and running, etc. I had a treadmill and a bicycle trainer at home, but I liked the feel of the gym for weight training and all the other things that it had to offer. My girlfriend from college wanted to take a break so she could find herself or whatever bullshit she came up with to stop seeing me, so I said, fuck it, that's fine. We weren't from the same town anyway, so I figured I'd try to get into the best shape I could and focus on my job and maybe find another nice girl. Back then I was one of those nice guys who wasn't hurting for the attention of a lady, but I also wasn't the guy who had women crawling all over me. I looked for a gym and found one that was reasonable and not far from me, so I signed up. There were all kinds of people there. The hardcore lifter guys, the soccer moms, the whole gamut. I won't say I made lots of friends there, but there were some cool people that I saw all the time and would take classes with for fun. Honestly, it was cool, and a guy I'll call Jake and I would work out together a lot. He was this gay dude that was as funny as hell and even made the toughest workouts fun. We're still friends to this day. One day he said to me, "Hey, man, that woman over there keeps staring at you." And I tried to play it cool and looked around. "Her?" I said, nodding to a woman who was friends with my mom and lived up the street from us. "Yeah, she's been hawking you a lot for the last couple of days now. Today she's not even hiding it, bro." Oh man, it was Evelyn. Evelyn was the epitome of cougar. She was around 40, had a lot of money from a past marriage, and was the crazy woman in my mother's group of friends. To be completely truthful, she was pretty fine for what I considered an older lady at the time, so I was kind of flattered. I looked up at her and she waved, so I waved back, but that was it. I didn't dwell on it and just kept doing my thing, but Jake was right. She did stare at us, or me rather, whenever she was in the gym at the same time. One time she was on a thigh machine, and as she was working out and caught my eye, she licked her lips. Uh-oh, I know what that means. So about 2 weeks go by, and my mother stops me on my way out one night and tells me that her friend needs something fixed at her house. I ask who, and she says, "Miss Evelyn." I said, "I don't think so, Mom. Maybe Dad has time to help her." But she said he didn't, and that she wanted me to help her friend. It would mean a lot. I finally gave in and said okay, and the next day called her to ask what she needed. She had a home gym that needed a cable replaced at her house, and she couldn't fix it on her own. Would I be available to help her? Yeah, that's where this is going. I went up the street and passed her Camaro. Of course she had a Camaro. And I knocked on her door. She answered in full Denise Austin getup, the shiny tights and leotard, leg warmers, the whole nine. Music was blasting, and she motioned for me to follow her to a back room. "I think there's something wrong with the pulley or something," she shouted over the music, and I shook my head and knelt down beside the mechanism. Right, the cable had come off, that was it. I slipped it back into place and said, "There you go," and moved towards the door. Evelyn practically jumped in front of me and said, "How much do I owe you?" I laughed at how cheesy this whole scene was and said nothing. Before I knew it, her hands were down the back of my pants and she started kissing me. Seriously, this was like a penthouse letter. I know it sounds like that, but this happened. I knew it was wrong, but I said screw it. I hadn't been laid in over a month and followed her lead. We had sex, and afterwards it was super awkward, so I kind of just got up and left, and she only said, "See ya." So I think that's that, and just go on doing my normal thing. Nope. I didn't know she was seeing this guy from the gym, a huge steroid dude that had biceps the size of my thighs. At first, I didn't think of much of what was going on with him, but he kept accidentally bumping into me at the gym and little things like that. It got worse pretty fast. Yeah, she told him what had happened. I guess I was a small piece of her attempt to get this bruiser jealous, and man, it worked. And now he decided to take things out on me. The small oops bumps became full-on shoves, and one time I was benching without a spotter. He came up behind me, slammed the bar down onto my chest, and just stood there staring at me. I told the owner of the gym what was up, but he blew it off and said the guy was probably just trying to help me despite me telling him otherwise. Stuff like that kept happening, and I began to notice that Evelyn had now taken to watching when he was doing this shit to me. Jake had been away during most of this, but when he came back, nothing stopped. Finally, one day after a shove from this big dude, Jake stopped him and asked him what his problem was. The guy got right in his face and started screaming about minding his own business. Practically everyone in the gym stopped what they were doing to look over at us, and I swear, when I looked up, Evelyn was there, and she was practically touching herself. I grabbed Jake and we walked away past the owner, and I said something like, "Yeah, don't bother with him, he's a real help." The next day after work, I went to work out, and my swipe card was denied. It wasn't a glitch. The owner came out with a handful of cash and handed it to me saying that it was my money back, and I was kicked out of the gym. No arguments, no conversation, that was it. When I got back to my car in the parking lot, someone had keyed the word faggot into the driver's side door, and they even spelled the slur wrong on top of it. When I got home, I paged Jake and he called me back that night. He'd been kicked out of the gym too. I asked him to meet me out for a couple of beers, and we went to an Applebee's not too far away, and we just sat at the bar talking about the bullshit that had happened. He looked over my shoulder after a while and said, "Oh shit, here she comes." Of course, it was Evelyn. She stopped and put her hands on my shoulders and told me she needed my help at her house again. I said, "Fuck no," and she said something like, "Oh, I think you'll be helping me," and walked off. Okay, to cut through all this mess, some money and products had been stolen from the gym, and the security camera showed two guys of our size. That's me and Jake. And they had grabbed a bunch of stuff and ran out of the gym. Evelyn told me she would be willing to say it was us if I didn't come over to her house the next day. I didn't know what to do, and I said I'd have to face the music to Jake. He told me that he'd go with me and hide outside and try to record any conversations with his dad's video camera. It turned out to be one of those huge VHS cameras, and he looked more like a news reporter than a spy. So the next evening I went over to Evelyn's with Jake, and he ran alongside her house, and I told him I'd try to get her into the back room where he could see and hear our conversation better. She let me in and basically said, I'll never forget this to this day, that I was going to be her boy toy or she'd turn me in. I kept her talking, hoping that Jake was close enough to record it, but I couldn't see him. Suddenly, in came her boyfriend with this other guy who was just as big, and they were not happy. They also overheard the conversation, and everything happened so fast it was blurry. The guy's friend grabbed me by the face with one hand and threw me into the wall, and I went into the drywall and cracked my head on something. I remember falling down and him kicking me, but I also remember Evelyn screaming. The boyfriend was yelling at Evelyn, telling her he was going to kill both of us, and he later told police he was just trying to scare us. But in reality, he was going to fuck her and make her watch his friend beat me up at the same time. No lie, I got the shit kicked out of me by this guy. At one point, he had me in a headlock and made me look at the boyfriend basically raping Evelyn while she just lay there looking back at me. After what seemed like forever, the boyfriend came over to me and said all this shit about that's why I needed to stay out of her life and stuff like that. He basically grabbed me and threw me towards the door of the back room we were in and said, "Why the fuck were you over here in the first place?" I could barely talk, but I said something about her blackmailing me and Jake, and his eyebrows went up. He looked back at Evelyn and started yelling and calling her names and how she was a stupid bitch that got him to beat up a little kid. Yeah, he called me a little kid. And then he told me to leave. Evelyn screamed again, and I hightailed it out of the house, fully intending to call the cops. But I didn't need to. They were already coming up the street. Evelyn's neighbors had heard the noise and called them on their own, and Jake had come out from the back with his camera. I told everything was going on and that Evelyn was in danger, and the cops took one look at me and my ripped clothes and my bloodied face, and they went into her house. They brought both guys out and sat them on the curb, and more cars came and more cops began asking everyone questions about what had happened, with half the neighborhood standing around watching us. By now, Evelyn was sitting in a chair on her porch crying and talking to the police. One interviewed me, and I just said that I was going over to fix something because she had asked me to. I never mentioned the whole blackmail thing. They asked why Jake was there, and I made up a lie that he was going to videotape me so we'd have a video of how to fix it in the future. I never did say what it exactly was I was fixing, and that he hadn't gone in with me and went around back to find me because he got there later than I did. I told the cops the guys came in and did what they did, and here's where the other miracle happened. Jake never got the conversation Evelyn and I had, and the old camera had stopped working right after my beating and what the boyfriend did to Evelyn. Everyone's stories were pretty close except the guys, and they got hauled off on a bunch of charges. I don't know why I didn't say anything about why Evelyn had me over there, but I didn't. I guess I felt sorry for her that she was in that bad of a relationship, even though I just had my face pounded in. Jake, who as I mentioned I'm still friends with, says I was just thinking with my other head. Anyway, the guys were arrested and convicted of a bunch of stuff, and did some pretty long time in prison despite their stories they tried to tell. I didn't see or hear from Evelyn the rest of that summer, and only briefly during court proceedings. Years later, after I'd moved away and was back home visiting my parents, everybody on the block had a party. I was there with my fiancée, and Evelyn showed up with some guy her age that was her boyfriend. I didn't say much to her, but I swear on a stack of Bibles when she walked past me one time, her hand swept over my butt. I couldn't believe it. I look back now and think about that time and how much rotten shit happened because I joined that gym. Yeah, I still blame that place and not Evelyn. So, to Evelyn, you crazy bitch who blackmailed me and got my ass beat by two crazy weightlifter guys, I don't care if you hang out with my mom, but stay the fuck away from me. Loony Dude at the Gym by I Hate Course 15. My background. Military. Moved here 2 years ago. So I've been going to the local 24-hour fitness center ever since I got stationed here. For these 2 years, I've seen this guy Brand that seemed pretty cool. I've played one-on-one basketball with him, and he's told me about his crazy ex-wife, blah blah blah. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. So normal to me that I invited him over on July 3rd to have enchiladas with my family. Again, nothing out of the ordinary here. Last Friday, I'm playing basketball with my wife. This is a tradition we have after every workout. Well, Brand comes up from my right side and smacks the ball out of my hand. He's done this before, so I didn't think much about it, but today seemed different. He seemed more aggressive. He apologizes for interrupting our game and goes to play ball on the other side of the court. I get to my car, and there are 4 text messages from him. What's your problem, homie? You at the gym? You can't fuck up what's already fucked up. No big deal, I'll catch up with you. The thing is, he sent me these text messages 30 minutes before I saw him at the gym. So I responded with, "What are you talking about?" No reply. Then, the next day at 7 a.m., he texts me and my wife's coworker, Trey, who also goes to the gym. So in a group chat, this is what followed. There was a video link to the song Future, Mask Off. Steal from me too. Shaking my fucking head. Motherfucking faggots wanted my attention, now they got it. Video link to the song Eminem, Go to Sleep. The lyrics though, word for word, I'm obsessed now. So my buddy Trey and I are confused. I texted Trey to ask what the hell is this dude talking about? My buddy Trey texted back in group chat. What are you talking about, bro? So 5 hours later the dude replies with, I forgot. My thoughts are sporadic like an addict. Oh, now I remember. I love you, man. For real, Thursday night around 8:30, this cat got my keys and water out of my gym bag and stole $1,000 and a pistol from my car. Jim released video to police, but nobody knows what his name is. I thought I've seen him with Trey, but I don't know Trey's last name. I just gave the cops Trey's first name and phone number. So if you get a call, you know what it's about. They're just trying to identify him so it don't happen to someone else. They didn't see him getting in my car, just into my gym bag in the gym, then putting my water back 5 minutes later. It's strange how they stole my water. Cops are scratching their head. So I filed a police report for $1,000 and a missing pistol and a half-gallon of reverse osmosis water. Shaking my head. Can't have shit. You think you have friends until the cops come asking questions. You're going to see how many friends you have. They all snitch because why? Save their own ass. Laughing my ass off. I'm one to see you Monday at 6. So at this point, I start putting shit together. He was aggressive at the gym and texting me because he thinks I took his shit. I texted him back saying if I could help in any way, I would. And he said, thanks, bro. I then called him because I wanted to clear my name and Trey's name. But 20 seconds into the conversation, I could tell the dude was not right in the head. On the phone, he said he got his cocaine, money, and guns stolen out of his gym bag. He says that he knows I, Trey, and my wife plotted against him to rob him. He says I invited him over to plot against him. He said I made a big mistake by inviting him over and showing him where I live. I asked what that meant exactly, and he said, I got guns. If the cops don't handle this, I will handle this. I said, are you going to try and hurt my family? And he said he knew where I lived. I explained to him that I am in the military, and I don't get involved in illegal shit like that. And neither does my wife or Trey, who are also in the military. We have clearances. He said, I know you did it. He mentioned that he was a diagnosed schizophrenic who was always high on drugs, that people know not to fuck with him. He said the gym won't release the footage to him, only the cops. At that point, I ended the conversation, because I knew I could not reason with someone who was unreasonable. It also occurred to me that if the gym didn't release the footage to him, he has no idea who took his shit, and he is just assuming. So, I called Trey immediately, and let him know to watch his back at the gym. That this dude is a nutjob, and he thinks we plotted against him. Paranoid loony. Yesterday, around 9:04, I got a text from him again. Are you and your bitch going out tonight? I'm buying drinks all night. So I replied saying, that's my wife, not my bitch. Have a good night. Then he replied, she's a fucking hoe. Are you mad? I bet she gives good sloppy head. Am I rut? I think he meant right. At this point I'm shaking because I'm so mad at this guy for saying these things about my wife, but I did not reply. Then about 30 minutes later, he sent me a video link to Mariah Carey's video for Obsessed. I did not reply. Now I'm at a friend's house watching last night's UFC match. As soon as I get home, I call the local police to have an officer sent to my house. I explained all the stuff to the officer, and the officer advised me to not go to that gym anymore, and to not engage with the individual. He asked if I had a weapon at home, and I said I do, and he said, good. You have the right to defend yourself. I also have a huge German Shepherd. So today at 2:53 p.m., he sends a group text again to me and T. A meme of O.J. Simpson smiling with the caption, when you know you did it, but they couldn't find you guilty. I guess John and I aren't friends anymore. John is me. Got all sensitive over a hoe. Done went soft on us, shaking my head. I guess this means next time I see you we are throwing hands? Fighting, I guess. Or are you cool with me calling your bitch a hoe? I love you, John. Opinions on fags or buys in the military? Line them up like Columbine. See if I get away with it now. Just so you two know, I'm far from confused or forgetful. I love you, bros. I owe you one. Or should I say 5. I feel like I should pay you for the mollies, or bath salts, or hook me up with. Just let me know how much. My bank account is the only thing overdosing over here. While he was sending that string of texts, me, my wife, and Trey were at the gym canceling our memberships for fear of our lives. The gym also stated that they would suspend Brand's membership. I'm not going to block the guy's number because I want any evidence I can use against him in the event something happens to my vehicle, my house, or my family. Also, if you notice at the end of the last string of texts, he is implying that we now sold him drugs. I've turned on my motion detector to record when I am not at home, and I've also shown my wife how to arm and use my weapon. I am glad that me and my wife are moving to Germany soon, but it's not soon enough. I fear for the safety of my wife when I am not home, and I am not going to engage the guy because I don't want to give him any more ammo for the crazy scenario in his head. Ever seen the movie A Beautiful Mind? Honestly, at this point, I'm not even sure if anything was stolen from him. I don't really hang out with civilians for the lifestyle differences, and the one time I did, look what happened. Now, I'm not saying civilians are bad at all, but I carry caution even higher than before. Anyway, stay safe and keep to yourself at the gym. Update. The dude just found me on Facebook. Now I have his last name. I sent the Facebook post to the police officer I spoke with earlier, along with a Facebook profile picture. The guy Brand sent me a message also that said, "Hey handsome, cute picture. You should be a model." I blocked him and had my wife block him. Now he knows our last names. What next? Update. Looks at pics of local apartments on Google. Pretty easy to find where he lives, about 15 minutes down the highway from me. I got enough information on him now that if something happens, I can notify the authorities of his approximate location.